Hi, friend S. There's a woman, she walks into the world, and the world doesn't walk with her. She wakes up alone, celebrates alone, dreams alone. She has no messages waiting, no weekend plans, no late night calls, and yet she still stands, still breathes, still moves. You see, the world taught her that being friendless means being less, but that's a lie, because silence is a space where character is carved. When the world stops clapping, that's when you start to hear your own voice. A woman with no friend is not a woman to pity. She is a woman in training. Training in independence, in strength, in discernment. She doesn't chase crowds because she knows her worth isn't up for auction. Some nights, yeah, they hurt, but hurt is honest. Hurt teaches. It teaches her to be her own companion, to clap for herself, to defend herself, to be the home she never had, and then something wild happens. When the world no longer defines her, when loneliness becomes a lens, not a change, she starts to radiate something different, not the glow of popularity, but the fire of authenticity. She's not looking to fit in anymore. She's looking to build, to grow, to rise. And eventually friends come, but not because she needed them, because she earned them, not to fill a hole, but to add to a whole woman. So if you're a woman with no friend right now, don't run from it. Study it. Let it sharpen you. Let it teach you who you are without applause. Because the woman who walks alone for a while walks ahead when the rest are lost. When we think of loneliness, especially in a world that glorifies social connection, constant interaction, and the presence of others, we tend to define it as something shameful, a flaw, a crack in the human experience. But that perception is not only misleading, it's dangerous. Loneliness, when viewed through the right lens, becomes not a punishment, but a teacher. A sacred space where the most profound learning takes place. A classroom where the curriculum is raw, real, and necessary. Imagine a woman who sits by herself, not because she wants to, but because life has made it so. She looks around and sees groups, cliques, circles formed with laughter and shared memories. And she wonders, why not me? In the silence of her own company, she confronts what many people spend their entire lives avoiding. Herself. No filter, no audience, no performance. Just her. And that is where the lesson begins. In this solitude, she learns to hear her own voice, not the one she uses for others, but the one buried beneath expectation and pressure. It's quiet at first, uncertain, but over time it grows more confident, more defined. She starts to recognize what she actually likes, not what she's told she should. She begins to realize what matters to her, what fuels her, what drains her. Without the noise of outside validation, her decisions become rooted in values, not popularity. In this classroom, she learns emotional resilience, because there is no one to run to when discomfort rises, no one to distract her from pain. So she faces it. She learns to soothe her own wounds, to hold space for her own grief. These lessons are not easy and they are not glamorous, but they are vital. They build the foundation of a person who does not collapse when the world gets quiet. She also learns boundaries, what she will and will not accept, because when you're alone, you become more sensitive to what disturbs your peace. You start to see people not through desperation, but through discernment. You no longer welcome anyone just to escape silence. You learn to protect your solitude like treasure. That awareness becomes a filter that keeps toxicity out and lets only alignment in. In that classroom of loneliness, she begins to build something sacred, self-trust. And that trust becomes the soil for confidence, not arrogance, not bravado, but a quiet, steady certainty in who she is even when no one else affirms it. She becomes rooted like a tree that grows deep before it grows tall. Here's the truth most won't say. The strongest people you will ever meet are the ones who have been through seasons of isolation and came out with clarity, not bitterness. They didn't escape the lonely room. They studied in it, they used it, they allowed it to refine them. Because while friendship is beautiful and community is powerful, neither is a substitute for knowing yourself. So no, loneliness is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It might just be the universe enrolling you in the most important course you'll ever take. A course where the homework is healing, the textbook is truth, and the final exam is how well you can stand in your own presence without fear, without shame, without needing someone to hold your hand. This classroom doesn't hand out certificates, but it gives you something better. It gives you you. When a woman walks alone, not by choice, but by circumstance, something profound begins to happen within her. At first, it may feel like punishment, being left out unheard or unseen. The world moves fast, and she watches it from a distance, wondering why she isn't part of it. But if she leans into that solitude instead of fighting it, something sacred begins to unfold. Without the influence of others, without the need to perform or please, she begins to see herself more clearly than ever before. Solitude doesn't distort the mirror, it cleans it. It allows her to notice her own patterns, emotions, fears, and desires in their most honest form. She begins to question what she's been told about who she is and starts to define it for herself. In a crowded room, self-awareness is diluted by noise, by obligation, by habit. But in solitude, there's nowhere to hide, the distractions fade, and what's left is a woman who has to face her thoughts head on, with no one else to interpret them for her. That's where the real work begins. She starts to recognize what triggers her and why. She notices what brings her peace, not just temporary comfort. She starts identifying which of her choices have been hers and which were made to gain approval or avoid rejection. That is clarity. That is awakening. Solitude also sharpens her ability to make decisions from alignment, not urgency. When no one is around to nudge her, she has to navigate by her own compass. She may make mistakes, she may stumble, but every decision, whether right or wrong, teaches her something about who she is and what she values. She begins to build a life not based on what others expect, but on what she deeply knows to be true. That kind of clarity can't be taught in books or heard in advice. It has to be lived in silence. And as her awareness sharpens, so does her vision for the future. She stops chasing illusions. She starts setting boundaries, not out of bitterness, but out of understanding. She begins to know the difference between what feels good and what is good for her. She learns to sit with discomfort without needing to escape it, because she understands now that discomfort is just a message waiting to be heard. Clarity born from solitude is different from clarity born from noise. It is unshakable. It is not based on trends, popularity, or opinions. It is the result of inner alignment, and it makes her presence powerful, even when she walks alone. And the beauty is, once she has that clarity, she can enter any space, any conversation, any relationship without losing herself in it. Because she knows who she is outside of the roles the world has tried to assign her. The woman who embraces solitude doesn't just survive without others. She evolves. She transforms, she emerges more focused, more intentional, and far more aware. And when the time comes to step back into the world, she does so not from a place of longing, but from a place of knowing. She doesn't follow the crowd, she leads herself. Because solitude didn't just keep her company. It carved her character, sharpened her intuition, and gave her a clarity that no external voice ever could. There's a dangerous myth that too many people silently believe, that having friends validates you and not having them invalidates your worth. But the truth is, friendship is meant to be a gift, not a necessity for identity. A woman without friends is not broken. She is not lesser. She is not failing at life. In fact, she may be in one of the most important phases of her growth, learning to walk without leaning, learning to stand on her own before she chooses to stand beside others. When friends become crutches, people forget how to walk alone. They lose the ability to hear their own thoughts without echo. They become dependent on others to affirm their choices, soothe their fears, and define their joy. And that dependence, while it may look like connection on the outside, slowly chips away at inner strength. But a woman who goes through a season without friends learns the opposite. She learns how to move through life without constant reassurance. She learns how to calm her own storms, how to celebrate her own wins, and how to hold space for her own struggles. Friendship should never be a lifeline, it should be a lifeboat. Something that helps you sail further, not something that keeps you afloat. Companions are meant to walk with you, not carry you. And if they do, it should only be in moments, not as a permanent way of living. A woman who has had to live without those companions for a time, who has had to navigate heartbreak, failure, joy, or discovery on her own, it gains a kind of inner muscle others don't. She becomes resilient not because she wanted to, but because she had to. And that resilience becomes her foundation. When she eventually welcomes friends into her life, it's no longer from a place of need, it's from a place of choice. She doesn't cling, she doesn't perform, she doesn't tolerate unhealthy patterns just to avoid being alone. She knows what her peace costs, and she won't give it away for shallow company. She doesn't look for people to fix her or fill her, because she's already done that work herself. What she wants now is companionship that adds value, not drains energy. People who walk beside her, not in front of her or behind her. People who see her clearly, not just for what she gives, but for who she is. And that's where the beauty lies, because when friendship is no longer a crutch, it becomes a choice, a gift, a joy, something rooted in mutual respect and growth. not survival. The woman who learns this through solitude doesn't fear being alone because she knows she has herself. And with that kind of self-possession, she becomes impossible to manipulate, impossible to keep small, and impossible to ignore. So don't mistake absence for failure. Don't confuse solitude with emptiness. When a woman lives without friends, it doesn't mean she's unlovable. It means she's learning not to depend on love as her only mirror. She's learning to be whole before being surrounded. And when she finally does open the door to friendship again, it won't be because she needs someone to hold her up, but because she's strong enough to walk side by side. In a world that constantly counts likes, follows, group photos and birthday wishes as a measure of worth, it becomes dangerously easy for a woman without friends to question her value. She may sit alone and think, "What's wrong with me?" She may walk through life wondering why others are invited, celebrated, surrounded, while she is not. But this idea that your worth is tied to how many people show up for you is not only false, it's deeply limiting. Because true value is not found in the crowd. It's found in the content of your character, in the weight of your principles, and in the fire of your spirit when no one else is watching. A woman may have no one clapping for her, no one texting her back, no one remembering her milestones, and yet still carry more depth, more wisdom, and more quiet strength than those with full calendars and empty hearts. Her value doesn't come from attention, it comes from authenticity. It comes from the battles she's fought and won alone. From the night she cried and still got up the next morning. From the decisions she made that no one applauded but was still right. From the integrity she maintained even when no one was looking. That kind of worth can't be given by others, and it can't be taken away by their absence. The problem is that we are conditioned to believe we need reflection to see ourselves. We think we need someone to tell us we matter in order to believe it. But a woman who learns to look inward instead of outward for validation unlocks a power that doesn't fade with popularity. She starts to define herself by her resilience, her intentions, her growth. She stops measuring her days by who texted and starts measuring them by how she showed up for herself. That shift may seem small, but it changes everything, because when you stop outsourcing your worth, you become unstoppable. This understanding allows her to protect her energy. She no longer chases people who do not see her. She no longer bends to fit into rooms that don't honor her. She no longer gives pieces of herself away for temporary comfort. She stands firm because she knows that her value is already intact, already complete, already earned. Whether or not others recognize it is irrelevant, and ironically, it is often when she fully embraces her internal value that the right people begin to notice. Not because she sought them out, but because self-worth has a frequency. It attracts those who are tuned to it. When she walks into a room without seeking approval, she commands respect. When she speaks with confidence born from solitude, people listen differently, not because she's louder, but because she's real. So, if you're a woman sitting in silence right now, feeling unseen, unheard, or unvalued, remember this: your value was never designed to be counted by the number of people in your life. It was meant to be cultivated within, nurtured by truth, strengthened by solitude, and protected by boundaries. The world may not always acknowledge your worth, but if you know it deep in your bones, that's more than enough. Because when you carry your value inside you, you never walk alone. There is a quiet power in the way a woman chooses herself, even when no one else is choosing her. In a world that often glorifies being liked over being whole, many fall into the trap of becoming whatever others need them to be. Just to be accepted, just to be included. But self-respect isn't about fitting in. It's about standing firm. It's about drawing the line and saying, this is who I am, and this is what I will and won't allow. And while that choice might leave a woman walking alone for a while, it's also the very choice that opens the door for genuine, lasting connection later. Self-respect starts with small decisions, choosing to walk away from disrespect, choosing not to chase someone who doesn't see her, choosing silence over explanation when she knows her worth doesn't require proof. At first, these decisions can feel isolating. The world may not applaud them. People may leave. She may question herself. But deep inside, something begins to build. A sense of alignment, a quiet pride in knowing she did not betray herself just to be accepted by others. And it's in this space of alignment that her energy shifts. She no longer operates from desperation. She's not seeking approval. She's walking in purpose. She stops tolerating half-love, shallow friendships, and conditional kindness. She becomes clear on what she brings to the table and refuses to sit at any table where respect is missing. That's not ego, that's self-honoring. And that energy speaks for her even when she says nothing. People may not understand her at first. They might call her distant, cold, difficult. That's okay. Because self-respect often looks like rebellion to those who benefit from your self-abandonment. But she doesn't need everyone, she just needs the right ones. The people who see her and don't want to change her. The people who recognize her boundaries and meet them with honor, not resistance. The people who are drawn to her not because she makes herself small to be loved, but because she stands tall and still loves freely. And the truth is, the right people take time. They are not always loud, they are not always instant. But they are always aligned, and she will never attract them by pretending to be someone she's not. Only by showing up as her full, unapologetic self will she begin to build relationships that are rooted in truth, not performance. There is also a level of peace that comes with self-respect. She doesn't need to over-explain, over-give, or overstay. She knows what she's worth, and she no longer fears the silence that comes after a boundary is enforced. Because that silence isn't a loss, it's protection. It's the clearing of space. It's life making room for something better. So while others may take the fast route, fitting in, playing roles, blending in, she takes the longer path, the harder one, the one with more quiet and fewer companions. But eventually, that path leads her to the people who don't just want her around, but who value who she truly is. The people who don't need her to shrink. The ones who respect her because she first respected herself. And when that happens, when the right people find her, it's not random. It's not luck. It's the result of every hard choice she made to stay true to herself when it would have been easier to settle. That's not just growth. That's grace. That's power. That's self-respect returning with interest. When a woman chooses, or finds herself, walking the path of healing alone, it often feels like a punishment at first. There are no hands to hold, no comforting words to soften the ache, no circle of support cheering her on, just her, the silence and the pain. And that silence can be deafening. It can feel like abandonment, but in truth, that silence is sacred. Because healing in solitude is not about escaping the world. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about facing what hurts without distraction, sitting with your wounds without someone rushing to patch them up prematurely, and allowing the pain to teach you what shallow noise never could. In the noise, healing can be diluted. Advice pours in from all directions, well-meaning but often misaligned. People tell you to move on, to let go, to think positive. And sometimes, in that rush to feel better fast, we skip the necessary steps that make healing deep and real. But when you're alone, truly alone, you can't escape the truth of what you feel. There are no masks to wear, no personas to perform. You meet your pain with open eyes. And though it may be brutal, it is also honest. That honesty is where real strength is born. A woman who heals in solitude learns how to mother herself. She learns how to comfort her own wounds, to breathe through the fear, to sit with her shadows and not run from them. And in doing so, she builds an inner resilience that isn't dependent on anyone else. She becomes her own sanctuary, her own safe space. She stops needing someone else to fix her or save her because she's already doing the work herself, slowly, intentionally, powerfully. This kind of strength isn't loud. It doesn't scream for attention. It moves quietly like roots growing beneath the surface, deep, steady, unshakable. Others may not see her transformation right away. They may not notice the battles she's won behind closed doors, but she knows, she feels it in how she breathes differently now, how she thinks before reacting, how she chooses peace over chaos. That's the strength that lasts. And here's the beautiful irony. Once she's healed enough to return to the world, she doesn't come back needing people. She comes back choosing them. She no longer seeks connection from a place of emptiness, but from a place of wholeness. That changes everything, because now she's not asking others to complete her. She's inviting them to walk beside someone already complete. Healing in solitude also gives her a gift most people never receive: self-trust. She learns to rely on her own wisdom, to listen to her body, to trust her instincts, to know when to say yes and when to walk away. That self-trust becomes her compass, guiding her through a noisy world that often tries to convince us to ignore our inner knowing. But not her. She's learned that silence isn't something to fear, it's where her truth lives. So while others may rush their healing in the arms of company, she has chosen, or accepted, the longer, quieter road, and though that path is harder, it leads somewhere deeper, somewhere stronger, somewhere real. Because healing in solitude isn't just about recovery. It's about rebirth. It's about emerging not just healed, but transformed. Not just surviving, but rising. And that kind of woman, she doesn't just return, she returns wiser, softer, sharper, and far more powerful than before.